a big honor for me to be at the AgileByExample conference. I lead the team that builds the natural language processing platform at Grammarly. So we are the backend, behind the backends, building the tools that internal teams use to bring you the value. So we bring the value to internal teams so that they can bring the value to you as the end users. I've tried to put as much examples and this talk as it's possible, as the conference is agile by example, so I'll try to be an example as well. So I worked in different companies for multiple years, and unfortunately, each year I have to update this slide, and if you know any means of automation, that would be cool. Each time I have to remember and calculate. But I will try to explain what I wanted, like the main topic of this talk, the effective culture, the culture that enables your company, the culture that's really working. By giving the examples and tools from my own experience. If I don't have experience with tools, I will honestly let you know about this. But still, if I included them in this slide deck, then that means that I like them for some reason. And during the talks on the conference, we saw many examples, many beautiful examples of why the culture is important and why the way how the companies worked many years ago, it doesn't work today. And I decided to start this talk from asking you, why do the companies exist? I put a very classical definition. So the companies exist to exploit the benefits of being big. But what is the, like, what do you think? What is the real purpose that the companies exist? You can shout out. You can be loud. Why do they exist? Sorry? To make money. Yes. Anything else? To deliver value. Yes. Because they can exist. Maybe. But my simplified definition why companies exist is as it is, to be profitable, to make money, because otherwise companies will stop existing. There is a beautiful book on social businesses. I will send you a link that says that even social businesses have to be profitable, otherwise they will not be there anymore. So, and to deliver value, but to deliver value to whom? Who are the people or groups that need this value? And customers. Anyone else? Okay, the end users, the customers, or some groups of customers. But what about employees? Are they worth having the value from the company's existence? Paid is a good value. Would you like to have anything else except from payment? Satisfaction. Yay! That's a good payment and satisfaction. What else? Recognition. Good thing. So satisfaction, pay, and recognition. Anything else? Social impact. Wow, then we have 4 components of value that we want to get as an employees of the company. And we have more. We don't have time to explore this too much. This part is more about what the companies need to provide to us. They have to address actually the values of the employees, of the end users, of those people who form the company. So there are many shareholders, including the employees. In my case, in here, I'll be focused on things that will make these benefits. We are focused as managers a lot on having necessary culture, having necessary environment to make people happy, productive, so that we can deliver value to the customers. So unhappy, I don't believe that unhappy employees can deliver proper value to the customers. Do you believe in this? Who believes that unhappy employees cannot deliver much value? Well, okay. But here we have an important component of the company. That's organizational structure. That's how the company, it's like a software architecture, but software architecture built for the company, and it defines lots of things, including the contracts. Let's say my team has a contract with a bigger team. We have some interaction mechanisms. We have communication structure. We have the way of agreed way of making decisions. It all defines like the structure, the architecture, the organizational design. And there's an interesting Conway's law. Have you heard about this? Have you heard about Conway's law? Yes, we heard about Conway's law. It says that the systems that you see in your day-to-day work, they reflect the communication structure of the companies. There are many things like, have you been in the company and people say that this is the historical artifact. We don't know why it is, but it is as it is because it is this way historically. Have you seen this? I've seen it many times. And I see how sometimes this situation like this happen in real time in my life. And if it happened before, then it was doing like archaeology, looking for the reasons how we ended in this situation. So the organizational structure, it reflects the software that we build, the products that we build, the value that we deliver. And so my experience, I mostly work in hierarchical organizations. And like who else works in the hierarchy? Yeah, be brave. Hierarchy is good, actually. Hierarchies can be flat. Hierarchies, for me at least, it brings lots of clarity. Who I am reporting to, who are my peers, where do I belong? So my team, it's like in holacracy. My team is a whole, and we are whole. We have our own identity, but we also are part of the bigger organization. In my case, the core language team is part of the intelligence organization, where we all are working on intelligence features that involve either natural language processing or machine learning. So we are the organization with a shared context, and we are the team. Then we have a bigger organization, the engineering organization, and we all are engineers. We all work on the same platforms. We all share some internal services, and we are the part of the bigger organization of the whole company in this case. And the whole company has also some interesting shared context, but we'll take a look at it a bit later. So what else, except from the hierarchical structure that gives me stability as the manager? I enjoy the benefits of stability. Everyone knows has a place where we belong. We have clarity in the reporting structure. We can guide team members in career growth. We can exploit the benefit or enjoy the benefits of the hierarchy. But also, I like the matrix, the project structure that's built on top of the hierarchy. My hierarchy is actually a functional hierarchy. Functional, and partially we have the component teams in the hierarchy. Luckily, our components are not big enough to span multiple teams. Mostly, we have one team per component or per multiple components. So, and once in a while, actually quite often, we have to build some new features to run experiments, to do some projects that involve people with multiple competencies. So in functional hierarchy, we are specialized teams. So each one is professional in certain domain, like backend, frontend, and backend teams can be, let's say, Python team, or can be Java team, or in my case, we are a Clojure team. So, but what if your project needs multiple people? You need a computational linguist who is professional in linguistics and can write code. You need a backend engineer to build a backend service. You need someone from the infrastructure team to help you with setting up the infrastructure. In this case, in this matrix organization, we assemble a dynamic team on top of the organization that I've described you on top of the functional hierarchy. So I can give my team members, I can propose them to join the project team, and they're in this hierarchy. They're part of my functional team, and they're part of the bigger team, cross-functional team that includes people from many other teams. And they're coordinated by someone, not necessarily manager, most often not a manager at all, but someone who is technically leading, who is coordinating the project. It can be a product manager. So we have another big organization that's called product management organization. It's responsible for the decisions on the product, on research, on user research, on having the numbers, on running the experiments, on all this product management magic. But what benefit they provide us? They provide us the prioritized list of the projects on which we will work, on which we will deliver, and we'll try to find the right people to work on these projects. And so the team is formed. We have someone who coordinates this, and we run this team. So it's another structure on top of the classical organization, and it's very dynamic. It lets us run the teams, it lets us form new teams, reform the teams, reprioritize, and move quite quickly. And we have also guilds. Guilds are quite important thing. You heard about guilds, right? Like in Spotify. Have you heard? Yes. So the guilds, they, in my experience, they work best when we are using guilds for knowledge sharing, like the guild of those who work with natural language processing. Or I would like to, while I was preparing the slides for the conference, I've decided why not to set up engineering managers guild or management guild in the team, so that we can span across the org and so that we can share the knowledge broadly across the organization. So there's not much commitment. We meet once per 2 weeks, for example, and we assign, we select someone who can deliver some presentations like I do today. And that's enough of the context. That's the context in which I work. And we came to the core of the presentation. It's the what is the culture? So the definitions of the culture. I was looking for definitions that I like, and the definition that I like most is the culture is how we do things in the organization. Not described in terms of policies, not in the policies, but in terms of organizational structure, reporting structure, but in terms of principles and values. And also, I like the phrase that culture is the organizational immune system. And you saw it in presentations that if you try to introduce something that contradicts the existing culture, it eats it. And they're saying, everyone today quoted it, that culture is strategy for breakfast. It is not just a strategy, it's everything that contradicts with it. And yet another iceberg model. I saw 2 models today, so I won't surprise you. Why I chose the iceberg model? Because how do you see the culture of the company? How you can observe it? What are observable things? They're written, actually. But you come to the office, look at the office, and you look at people and see, does it fit your values? Once I've invited my friend to the office on Saturday, and he looked around and he said, where are the people? I said, they're at home. It's Saturday. He said, that contradicts my values. In my company, everyone's there on Saturday. They're working. I want to work on Saturdays, so I won't join you. Because my value is to be here on Saturday. And he said, don't you have enough work so that you came home on Saturday? And I said that we're working 5 days, we're working quite intensively, we have to keep some balance. He said, no balance, just hard work. And that's the choice. So a different, I don't know if it's sustainable, honestly, but that's not the way that we do. So that's observable thing. You can go, sense, look, and see. There is something that on a level beneath that you have to experience. You have to join the company to see the policies, to see how the things actually work there, to work, to talk to people. And there is a foundational deep level that's not written, that's not described in the documents. That's the beliefs, the values of the employees who are there on board, and there are many of them. So it's even deeper level. But actually, like if you see the inconvenient chair in the office and someone is sitting on it, that how it ended up there in this office. So that means that somehow it grew up from the beliefs level. Someone believes that you don't need a comfortable workplace. Somehow it ended up in the documents and policies. Somehow it materialized in the form of a chair. So I believe, honestly, that the main, like the foundation of this is in the uh, sometimes unwritten rules, sometimes undocumented values that we all possess, the whole company. And many things that we observe in the offices, many things that we observe in environments, many things that we observe on the projects, they grow from the very from the deepest level, and the iceberg model could be substituted with the skyscraper model or the house model, where the lowest level is the foundation. And there are unwritten rules. And you remember the definition of the culture. It's how we do things here. So unwritten culture answers the question how we really do things here. And it's changing. Unwritten culture can be good. We may have some interesting aspects that refer to the increase our sense of belonging. We can have some interesting experiences in the teams that let us be more dedicated, own some interesting identity. There might be some harmful things like lines of power, like unofficial structure that can be harmful. And the thing that we can do, we can just mind the unwritten culture. We can interview people, we can ask them what they observe, what they feel, and if it's working as we design, because we try to design the company to meet our needs. The whole design, both org structure and corporate culture, they are means to an end. They are meant to get us to some point in future where we'll be all rich and happy by delivering the value to the customer. So my answer to the question how to assess if people are happy in the workplace, if they are enabled to work towards the future, is based on the hierarchy of needs. That's just illustrates what you need to address to make people feel themselves safe, feel engaged, and to work happily. So the first tool that I would like to introduce to you is Gallup's 12 question. Have you seen this tool or use it? Yeah, that's nice to see. So I found it very useful in my team, use these questions on one-on-one sessions with the team members, and I regularly get the report. The good thing about this is that I can compare my team to the rest of the organization, to the rest of the bigger whole of my intelligence organization. I can compare it to the other organizations and to the whole company to see if something is wrong in the questionnaire, if something needs to be addressed. Is that something specific to the team, or it's something specific to the bigger organization? If you want to, the whole explanation can take the whole separate session, but feel free to ask questions and feel free to explore this tool and feel free to reach out to me if you need some advice or something from my experience. I also like another model. So previous model, the Gallup's 12 question, is more focused on your existing experience. So to answer these questions, you have to be on board, you have to be present, you have to have your own experience of being a member of the company. But the employee experience model by Jacob Morgan, it's more about something that you can observe, you can ask, you can feel. It contains the cool spaces component. That's the physical spaces that we have. Do they reflect the values of the company? Are they comfortable? Do you want to bring visitors to the office? And actually, when I had an onboarding session to the company, the home task was to bring a friend to an office. Did you have similar experience? Bringing friends to the office is fun. Once COVID started, it's something that I'm really, really missing. But designing spaces that make you want to bring people there is essential. The ACE technology, my favorite component from here is that the technology that we use, the internal tools, they have to be really convenient and really easy to use. So that means that once we have the system that lets us, for example, do expense reports, I had experience when I had to take the receipts, glue them to the piece of paper, the A4 paper. Then I have to print the title page. Then I had to take it to the reception, put it in an envelope, and send to another country. In 30 days, I will get the expenses. Another experience was that I can install the application on the smartphone, scan the receipt, press the button, it sends it, and automatically approves. So which technology would you like to use, which enables your productivity and creativity? I guess that that's obvious. And celebrated culture, it's culture where like with lots of components, but like for me, the main component is that we want to bring people to on board. That I want to refer my friends, I want to work with people who share similar values. And actually, the good culture in which we are, which is inclusive, which is positive, it enables the growth of the company. It lets us, enables us in bringing our friends on board and building the community, which is even more comfortable to work in. So, and we approached the culture code. The important thing that I've noticed when I've joined Grammarly, but also I've researched and found very similar structure that's used by HubSpot. So this HubSpot names it traits. We name it values. You might find the abbreviation as, not abbreviation, but you find definition as core values, or sometimes named by culture code. But what I like about these values, except from acronyms, that HubSpot has people with heart, and we have eager employees. Except from this, they are codified, so they are expressed in observable behaviors. So, for example, you see that we have transparent, remarkable, adaptable, empathetic, and humble in HubSpot, ethical, adaptable, gritty, empathetic, and remarkable in Grammarly. So if you send the questions to for the session according to Grammarly's values, you express the remarkable value because you are curious, you want to learn something new, and that's good, and that's observable behavior because we can say that you're remarkable because you asked a good question. That's expressed in terms that are easy to use for three things that are core here: for recruiting, for reward, and for releasing people. These values, they can be integrated further, like the rest of the values we can use as an interesting addition. So we can use them as the guiding principles when we do planning, when we set goals, like we are data-driven. That means that we make decisions based on data. But we can't, well, maybe we can, but it would be more complex to use it as the something that we all possess, that's something we use to recruit, reward, and release. So the values, the core values that I've shown you, they can be embedded for this purpose into multiple processes in the company. For example, in 360 review cycle, I like the 3 questions that I have in self-assessment each half a year. So you have 360, right? Who has 360? That's healthy. Having feedback, it also corresponds to the values that getting feedback enables my growth. And actually, there was a value called ethical. Ethical says that you have to give feedback because you have to do, it states that you have to do the right thing every time, even when no one's watching. And giving feedback is something that you can omit because it's hard. You risk relationships, you have to get prepared, you have to build a forum for the feedback. And what's good about this is that you do the right thing and you let people grow. If you don't do this, then it's not that ethical. You know that you're not doing the right thing in this case. Also, like not doing the right thing in this case, I listen to people talking in the elevator. One said that when my manager is not watching me, I can't work. He should motivate me, but when he leaves for a month in some business trip, then I can't just focus on the work. So I sit and wait while he gets back from the trip. And I said, poor manager, he has to babysit lots of people and spend lots of valuable time on doing what he could omit. So my main points from the self-assessment is what are the most significant achievements for the review cycle. But next thing is what I have done to enable myself to make more in the upcoming review cycle. So have I invested enough to be better then? And how how the values are embedded in the structure. Actually, I have to write about myself what culture code, what ethical, adaptable, empathetical, gritty, or remarkable behaviors have I expressed in the review cycle. And I have to write them in exactly the terms of the culture code that we have. And the good thing that I have received the feedback from my peers in this exactly same structure, in the exactly same terms. By doing this regularly, by using it in recruitment, in the assessment, we all know the values like by heart. And it's a good application because I know them even if you wake me up in the middle of the night, I can tell you every value that we have. That's a side effect of this. The assessment part is not also in the 360 review, but it's also in the performance value structure of the assessment. So there is research that shows that if you assess only the performance, you omit the important thing, how if we are not just performant, but if we are good citizens, if we expressed the expected behaviors, the behaviors that lie in the foundation of our culture. And so by assessing people by performance, so have you done what was expected from you? That's the performance. But have you done this in the way that we expected? That's the values. So are you a good citizen and are you a productive worker? Actually, I saw how the HubSpot changed the value of effectiveness to empathy, because they decided that effectiveness, they embedded it into other value. But still, empathy, being a good citizen of the company, being good to others, is very important to keep company up and running, to keep the culture safe, to keep the working environment safe, and to keep everyone happy. And on some interviews, maybe people asked you questions or explained you that our value is to get the job done and to keep everyone super happy and productive. So, how we can develop the culture? What can we use from the other tools? I like the onboarding exercise, onboarding university. When you join the team, you have lectures from people who possess values, especially like from the CEO, from the founders, on what values do we have in the company and how they are built, how they're expressed. I like the managerial training, what it means to be a manager in the company, how we manage people, how we do things here. It helps a lot in building this culture. I've passed the 3 months training and the interview training. How do we select people to make sure that we select people equally? So the functionality of the cross-functional teams, it's very dependent on the mutual values, because if you put people with different values on the same cross-functional team, it might not work, and I believe that there might be lots of troubles. We'll have to choose the people that are compatible with each other. So this brings us like to the system that's working, and that lets us work in productive and safe environment. There are some interesting rituals that you can employ as well, but we can discuss them afterwards. So I can make some interesting observations. We introduced the Friday demos. Each Friday we have a demo from the teams in the engineering organization, and each Friday we have 3 10-minute demos, and it lets us know what the company is working on. So it's a huge insight into many distant parts of the organization. And inside the organization, inside the intelligence org, we have deep dive sessions. That's 1 hour long sessions, once a week on Friday, which reveal in depth what other teams or dynamic teams are working on. So I would like to leave some space for the questions, because it's the most important and interesting part of the talk. If you want to discuss something that was on the slide, I will send the slides. I'm available on LinkedIn, so feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you very much. And by the way, I have some questions And if you manage, we can add more, but I have 4 at least by now. So going from the first one, it starts with diagnosing the culture. That's a difficult word for me. But what about action to either support or change it? So what does it take to trigger changes?
If you can explain more what kind of changes, because changes in
that's my assumption. That's not my question, but my assumption here is, and if you don't agree, this is the moment when you yell at me, not at Dima. So you diagnose the culture, you diagnose where you are, you decide you want to change the culture into one direction or another, and how you do this. So how do you define those actions? How do you make those actions happen to either sustain some part of your culture or change some part of your culture?
Yeah, changing culture is extremely hard, especially in base values. And in my view, it has to be very thoroughly worked in advance, communicated to people that we are going to do some changes, because otherwise, what we have an uncertainty. Why this happened? What are the consequences? How the whole system reacts to this? For me, the most essential part is being involved in the decision-making process, at least being able to contribute, the window to contribute to the decision, even though if you are not going to use my contribution, is very important for me. And the second is properly communicated. Often I get the preliminary message that lets me know in advance, for example, what is going to be shown to the whole organization, and I can contribute to the communication component as well. So it's well designed, including feedback and properly communicated.
Awesome. And you mentioned something that changing the core values, and I have exactly the question about the and I had a question about how did you come up with the culture, principles, and values in Grammarly? Who was involved in defining it?
Yeah, in defining it, we had the whole executive team involved, plus a consultant from Zappos, if you know the company. We worked together they worked together. I wasn't on board back then. But the set of values was defined and it wasn't changed because you saw that they are quite basic. But how you can change? You can change a bit the observed behavior. That would be a minor change. Not changing the whole block, but changing just the observed behaviors. That's setting up small things, changing small to achieve big results.
Yeah, and if you haven't heard about Zappos, then that definitely is worth checking out. So moving to the next one, what do you think meet the most resistance in the process of shaping the culture?
In the process of shaping the culture, anything can meet the resistance because culture is already there. So once we have some people on board, the culture is already somehow defined. It can be unwritten culture.
Yeah, by shaping, my guess is that if you want to change the culture you have already in the organization, so you discover what is the culture, you want to move it a little bit in one or another direction, what is the biggest resistance in your opinion?
I don't know what might be the biggest resistance. So I think that what's causing the biggest resistance is the uncertainty and fear. If people are afraid of the changes, they don't understand how they will impact the changes, then they will resist the changes. By my experience, and actually you can check the case of the HubSpot because they changed the whole value of effectiveness to empathy. And the slide deck actually explains, there's a link to the article that explains how they changed, why they changed, and the why is explained in slides as well. And it's also an important thing to have to know the history of the company, what was before this thing. So having lots of context, what was there before you saw these values, what was there before we rolled out these policies, because knowing the context, you can see what mistakes we made in past to avoid them in the future.
And I think that the iceberg you have shown to us is also kind of answer for this question, why it is difficult and how to make the change, starting from the values. All right, question from Mike. Of the tools you have mentioned, what do you think is the single most powerful thing people should look into first? So which one you would recommend starting with?
So I like to experiment. I don't have the actual hands-on experience with the model by Jacob Morgan, but I like it, and it can be used in assessing your own environment, That's a cool thing in getting feedback about own environment. But also, if you come to the company, it's an interesting thing to assess how company that you're working with works. You can exploring the values-based approach. It's very interesting, but it's a quite comprehensive tool because it changes like all people. If you have a bunch of people on board, you have already like some employees, then they already have some basic changes. And why, if you are rolling out something like this, they might resist that really, really heavily. So it's an exciting tool to work with, but it's also a hard tool to work with because like it needs many fundamental changes on the bottom of the iceberg. The hardest things are there. But 360 feedback, if you can adjust your existing values to this 360 feedback to express the feedback in observable behaviors, I guess that will be quite impactful and meaningful.
And you need to have a values defined to have a 360
well,
about the values.
You can be creative, and if you need some help, you can reach out to me. But I guess that expressing the right feedback, I like the structure where what have I achieved in the review cycle, what have I done to be more successful in the upcoming cycle, and was I a good citizen? I am sure that there are many ways how we can express the question, was I a good citizen of the company? So it is not necessarily connected to the value structure that I've shown.
All right, I believe we have answered this one. So the one I have here is, what does it mean that you do whatever it takes to deliver in Grammarly? So very specific one.
A very specific one, it's have you pushed hard when it was hard and boring? Can you remember when you pushed hard when it was really, really hard? Can you describe it? And then you describe it in, let's say if it's self-assessment, if it's an interview, you describe it on interview. The situation where it was hard and what did you do to do the last mile to get to the result, whatever it takes. Was there an example? If there's no example, then probably there's no behavior to share this time. There's an opposite if you have not pushed hard and other people noticed this. So.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we hit our time box. So once again, thank you to you, Dima.
Thank you so much.